Okay, welcome. It's Grant Cameron here speaking. I'm talking to Cameron Herndon and Peter Chan. And we're going to have a little discussion today. I've got this recording to a cloud, so I'll give you the copy and you can do whatever you want to it, blackmail people or whatever you need to do. I wanted to talk to you guys about the events, I guess it's a week ago or a little bit more than a week ago at Mount Shasta, and to record your experiences and get your input on what you think's going on. But I believe you guys had one of the more dramatic experiences, because most of the people, when I talk about Mount Shasta, they always want to know about the portal to the Zendra. And so maybe you guys can sort of introduce yourself, give a little bit of background, and then maybe we can get into this big event that you guys had that you really didn't realize what was going on until Enrique became a little bit upset, whatever you want to call it, that you hadn't reported this to him. But I didn't pick it up either. I had interviewed people involved in these Zendras before, and I didn't pick it up when you guys were talking about it either. It wasn't until he brought it up, I said, yeah, that's right. I mean, so let's go and maybe a little bit intro and what led you to Mount Shasta, and then let's get into this interesting story, and then we'll go to maybe some other stuff that you may have experienced on the weekend.
All right. So I'm Pete Chan. I'm a retired DoD engineer, aerospace engineer. I was tutored under Dr. Greer, Enrique Villanueva, and Robert Bingham. I started the San Diego group in 2013. We've been making contact every month in San Diego. I have a group where everybody's welcome to join to make contact. And I found out about Enrique through a video on the expo that he did, Consciousness, I think, Expo Consciousness. And I went to his first one 4 years ago, and I've been going ever since, because what he has to offer is something very deep within. It's more of the internal work, less of the visual work.
Wow, thanks. And Cameron, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Cameron Herndon. I started doing Greer type work in 2010. I also researched near-death experiences for 5 years, and then when I felt like I was ready, I went on a Greer retreat in 2015. On that retreat, I had 3 out-of-body experiences, changed my life, and I realized there was a lot more to the phenomena than just the heists, you know, looking up at the stars and seeing flashbulbs in the sky and so forth. So after that, I decided either to create a new group in San Diego or find a group, and I immediately found the group. Of course, Peter was already kind of leading, and so I met Peter in 2015. That was July, and we went to Shasta after that in August of 2015 and did some work up in Shasta. And ever since then, I've been wanting to go to Rama, and I finally was able to go to Rama this year. But I've been doing mostly the work on my own, and then this is really the most amazing group work I've ever done.
Did either of you guys have any, you hear about these antennas where people are getting messages before the event takes place. Were either of you getting any sort of indications as to what might be happening?
Go ahead, Peter.
The only thing I got was from the door. I had a quick feeling it's going to be geometric and crystalline, and that was about it. It was real brief. I'm still working on my antenna skills right now. So,
can you explain to people what the door is for people that don't know?
I know the group this group Rama attracts a lot of antennas.
Yeah.
I mean, a boatload of antennas. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and explain to people what the door is for people who don't know what you're referring to, because I was kind of shocked when I read the background of that door thing.
Well, the door that I know is it's a formation done on by the rocks, and it looks like a rectangular door. It's located within the Shasta area, but I can't tell you exactly where it is because we don't want anybody to deform it or anything. Yeah. But that door, I think that door is related to other things that happened to them at the time they discovered that door. It all kind of connected to other events.
Yeah, it certainly does look like a door. I was even looking at the cracks on the side. It's just very bizarre how that formation is in the side of the wall there.
It was kind of unusual for a rock formation. I was thinking of maybe, you know, when it cooled down, maybe it got to that form. But it was pretty interesting. It did have a shape of a rectangular door.
Yeah. And what about you, Cameron? Did you have any insights before you went? Any messages or anything like that?
I definitely had something at the door. So I had a vision at the door where the door opened inward from the top of it, as if it had hinges on the top of it. And it was about 12 inches thick. And it opened, and I went through the door, and it started as a tunnel with a light kind of at the end of the tunnel. And then as I walked through the tunnel, it opened up into a pathway and eventually into a field. And then there was sunlight, and then I saw an ET ship that actually had, it wasn't a round saucer, you know, type ship, and the bottom of it actually had a diamond shape to it, and it changed colors and then went translucent, and then an ET being all of a sudden was in front of me and started speaking to me telepathically and told me that this free will that they haven't been able to get past with humanity has been lifted, that a higher enough percentage of human beings have asked for help from the ETs, that free will has been lifted. And that's something, you know, very amazing was going to happen this weekend at Rama.
Can you describe the being that you saw?
The being I saw had very, very large eyes. It didn't have the extremely large head above the eyes. It had more of a head that was more streamlined, that went back lengthways backwards behind it. So.
Wow. And you reported this, I think, for people who haven't been to Shasta, you reported that Saturday morning, correct? At the sort of like a round circle where everybody reports their experiences. So I remember you reporting this Saturday morning, correct?
It was the, I believe Saturday morning we reported the Zendra, because that actually happened Friday night.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into that then. You and Peter have an experience. You leave the circle early. Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was about 11:40 at night. I kept coughing. Wasn't feeling well. It was getting cold. So we decided to just go back to our site and just kind of relax and unwind.
And you're on the far side, right? You were on the far north tent?
Yes, the very far north end, the far north, away from everybody in the suburbs. So we can relax and crack jokes. Do other human things like pass gas. Smoke that cigar. Basically have fun, crack jokes and stuff like that. So we got to the point where let's do a meditation. Let's hang out. Let's see what happens. Let's see what shows up. I'm sitting behind him. And then he says, Pete, there's this light over there in the kind of like at his eye level, I guess. And I was saying, okay, I'm not getting up. I'm sick. I'm just sit back and relax. Because I've seen a lot of stuff, and I believe you, Cameron. Just tell me what it is. And he kept going and going. I thought maybe some friggin', camper, but not at that time of night, like, what are we doing running around, right? So I said, I'm just going to go with the Cameron. I'm going to my tent now. I'm going to relax. And then he continued on. I kept telling Cameron, just keep going with this. Just tell me what's going on out there. I'm in my sleeping bag. I'm not getting out. I got you out there as bait. You got a pretty white boy out there. Let's hope they show up. Want to see them aliens. So then he continued, and then he can describe what he saw.
Go ahead, Cameron.
Okay, so I see this light all of a sudden appear, and what's kind of interesting to back up what Peter was talking about is that a lot of times actually it seems like when we're having kind of fun banter between each other and we get excited, it seems the phenomena can show up during that excitement, as if they like when you have kind of a childlike behavior, a purity to you. Going back to the light, so I first see this light just show up, and it was strange that it caught my attention because it was so bright, and I was trying to debunk it at first because I'm not the type of person that's, everything I see is the phenomena. And immediately I want to make sure that, okay, is that is that not a star that I see through the trees? Oh, wait a minute. The horizon level from my eyesight point of view must have been much, much higher than that because the mountain goes back up. It looked like it was only about 6 feet off the ground, off in the distance. And it wasn't between the trees because I was thinking if it's a star, then I'm seeing it through trees and I'm putting my head back and forth and it's still there. Nothing's obstructing it. And so then after a little while, another light shows up, exactly same height, about 6 feet off the ground, about 16 feet diameter width apart from each other, these two lights. So now I have two lights that are shining exact same brightness. They're not moving at all. They're static. So I was thinking, well, that's strange because if it was a star, wouldn't have I already seen it? Number one. Number two, if it was a camper or they were campers, wouldn't it be moving? You know, wouldn't it have come from another direction or something like that? We never saw anybody in the north that earlier that day, any campers or anything. And so these lights just sat there stationary. So I just watched them. I was telling Peter about them. And then eventually, what was really odd was I started seeing this shimmering on the ground underneath them, as if you're looking at the ocean or looking at a lake and the moonlight is glistening on the lake, on the water. So that's what was happening on the ground underneath them. But I was still trying to think that, okay, this could be something else. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to keep watching. The light on the right eventually dimmed out. And I was in my head trying to speak telepathically, getting to a very high vibration, saying, no, come back. You know, I love you, come back, please. And then the light came back. And I said, okay, well,
no.
stars don't do that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the light on the left went out and I was doing the same thing. Please come back. And the light on the left came back.
Wow.
And then the light on the right went out one more time and came back one more time. And then near the end, then all of a sudden the light on the left flashed at me, this bright flash of light. I said, oh, what was that? You know, it was a huge, what we call, typically we see in the sky, we'll see what we call flash bulbs because it looks like a power up, but it was this big flash of light from the left light specifically. And so I tell Peter, oh my gosh, it just flashed at me. You know, it's responding to me, you know, because I was trying to speak to it telepathically and, you know, to tell it to give me some sort of sign that this isn't man-made, you know, or human-made or what isn't a star. Yeah. And then after the big flash, it wasn't too long, less than a minute maybe, then they both vanished. And I was saying, no, please come back. And I didn't move. I never thought to tell anybody because I didn't even know what a Zendra was at that time. You know, I hadn't been told, I didn't know, you know, I didn't know what I had experienced. But I was just begging for it to come back. So I didn't want to move it. You know, I just stayed stationary and I just prayed for it to come back for about 45 minutes. And then I finally gave up and I went to bed.
And did the shimmering on the ground, was there a light associated with that, or was it just the lights and describe a little bit more about the shimmering effect?
Well, it was different. It wasn't as bright as the lights at all. It was just a light gray. It was, you know, as if it's a reflection of the lights that were above. But
okay.
there's, and I want to state that the first thing I did this is immediately what came into my head is that as soon as I wake up in the morning, I need to run over there. And I need to sit in a chair. So what I did, before I went to bed, I actually took a stick and I did a box around the chair. Because of course, in the morning, then all of a sudden, Enrique is going to say, hey, come on down. You know, we have to start doing Tai Chi or something. And so I wanted to make sure I knew where I sat. And I put an arrow in front of the box where to put the chair so I could bring it back to the same spot. And also where my line of sight was. So that in the morning when I woke up, the first thing I did was look at the chair, look at the arrow, and then go out into the woods. And well, and immediately, of course, I looked and I saw the horizon line was at least 35, 40 feet higher than my line of sight. So it wasn't a star, or they weren't stars. So I started going out into the woods, and I actually took video of this, explaining it, and I posted it. I went out into the woods directly around where the lights were, and there are no campers, there's no tents, there's no nothing over there. You know, just trees. So yeah, so that
Did you
was
post that in the Shasta group, or where did you post that? I haven't seen that.
You know what? I have it in the Shasta. I need to post it in the Shasta group. It was just on my.
So let's go to the next morning. So you
Back up. Okay. He goes to bed, right? It's quiet. I'm sleeping, and something goes by my tent. It rubs my tent.
Oh yeah, right.
The first thing I says, "Don't friggin' tear my tent up." Whatever this is it ET, dog? I don't care. Don't be tearing up my tent. So I felt it go right by me.
So what? How much later was that?
I can't. Well, it was quiet. He went to bed, and then it happened.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the time thing, but this is not the first time this has happened to me. This happened to me another times in the field where I hear footsteps around the tent.
Wow.
Invisible footsteps. So it's a normal thing. I'm used to it, but this time it got real close.
Did you get any better? Your health improve any?
I just need a rest. That's all. It's just bad.
Because you were coughing quite a bit.
There's no miracle happened. No, it was.
So let's get into what happens the next morning when you tell the story. What happens then?
So we're sitting in the circle, right? It was like we're still waking up from the other night. It's like I go like this, Kim, you better tell what's going on. This is debriefing time, bitch. Let's do it. And then he tells the story to Enrique. Enrique's eyes just lit up like, why didn't you wake us up? Why didn't you wake us up? Because we didn't know. And I can sit, you know, in Western culture, you don't wake up people. You don't do that. But apparently you do. So yeah, he was really excited about it. And what I learned about that was Joseph Burke, that you're really excited and passionate. Things may happen later on down the road because of that. So yeah.
So he mentioned this fact that if you get two lights and you get this shimmering effect, that this is associated with a Zendra. And I remember him mentioning, and that was true, that earlier that night there was two objects had gone in parallel in that direction. And I just thought they were up pretty high. Like usually, you know, they're a lot lower if a Zendra forms, but if you get these two lights, so I was kind of wondering why he was getting so upset too. And it was sort of like, you know, why didn't you know, like this Zendra is there, and even though I knew about Zendras, I didn't put the connection together when you guys were telling this story that may be what it was. But fascinating story.
Yeah. Well, back to the twin thing again. The twin thing you saw in the sky.
Yeah.
I like to call it the twin ships because we also in San Diego had a twin ship visitation during the government shutdown in 2013.
Wow.
4 of us men witnessed that. It came right over us at about 500 feet. Flew over the group. We recorded it on a SoundCloud. All I had was a phone. I didn't have any cameras. And then the second time it showed was in April of this year when one of our team members came back after a hiatus. And it showed up, and I predicted it at a certain time, 9:38, and it showed up to the west. Two white objects. I assume it was the twin ships. The twin ships also appeared in the Vera with Greer. So that's probably the same phenomena going on. And then here we are, me and Cam, the twin thing again, back to two again.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it kind of makes sense. It's kind of coming together again with the twin thing.
Wow. Describe the Greer event, because a lot of people, you know, they sort of figure nothing ever happens at the Greer event. So describe that one. Was it a pretty...
Well, I wasn't there, but there's a YouTube video out there called Vera Beach. If you pull that out, you'll see two gigantic orange orbs at the horizon. And that's what happened. In fact, when we had our twin ships, it was white and then it turned orange as it left the group. Wow. So all I can say, it's the twin ships.
And describe how a message comes to you. How do you get your messages? Like in terms of...
It's a feeling. It just pops in. It says, I don't hear anything.
Yeah.
There's no tap on the shoulder. It's just a feeling.
And it came with a time, you're saying?
9:38. 9:38 popped in. I said, okay, let's do it. I could be wrong, guys. but I wanted to show the guys anybody can do this. Even this guy on a bicycle can do this. Just 9:38. And then it showed up at 9:40, 9:38 is in that time frame. It did show up. And they were like looking at me like I was some sort of wizard. No, I'm not. I'm just a guy on a bicycle. Senior, taking the bus to the campsite. I'm nothing special. Anybody can do this. You just have to relax and it just pops in.
Wow. Fascinating. Any other experiences on the weekend? I'd like to go back to 2017, but did anything else happen on the weekend for you guys? I think Cameron was getting some other messages, correct?
During that weekend?
Yeah.
I did have another vision where I saw an ET during a type of meditation. And it was this time it was more of an insect looking ET that had a very, very large eyes and kind of had an ant head. That was actually on Saturday, telling me that they were going to come back Saturday night. And I had this feeling that I needed to go up, that Peter and I needed to go up and look for the Zendra again, but that's not where it was going to happen, that it was going to happen for somebody else, and that they were going to come in more of a personal fashion, I don't even, maybe 3D fashion for somebody else. And so that seemed to be confirmed with all the stories in regards to what happened when they went up the mountain, the group that went up the mountain on Saturday night.
So where were you when that happened? Did you go back to your tent? Because there was the group that stayed for the crystal initiation and then the group that went up to the mountain. So where were you at that point?
Peter and I went up to the same exact spot. I put my chair within that box that I drew on the ground, and I sat and I looked in the same exact spot, hoping for the same lights to come back. This time I was told, of course, now I knew from Enrique that to go to the light and because there could be a portal or something.
Yeah.
And I only saw a flash that happened, a flash of light in the bushes over there. And
so did I too. I saw it with them, that one flash of light. So
right.
yeah, I had a feeling too that it would also go to the other group, because since we thought it would not be nice if they didn't see anything too. It's like, who are these yo-yos,
Well, what can you remember what time that was? Because there was a what appeared to be, after I heard you told the story, I knew where your tent was. There was almost looked like a shooting star that flashed right into the spot that you're talking about there. So what time did you go back to the tent? Do you remember?
That could have been, well, actually, I had told Peter I was feeling 11 o'clock. So I think it was 10:55 that I kind of nudged Peter to start getting our chairs and going back up to the tent. But I was up until I think at least 2 in the morning.
Wow. So you missed the event on the mountain, but I think everybody sort of.
We're too tired. We're poops.
Yeah. And it may not have been intended for. I think Cameron brought that up, which may be true, is that the person that it's intended for ends up in the situation. Everybody else is sort of turned off and put to bed, and it may be that kind of thing.
Right. That's very true. Also, I felt like it was just a selflessness that, to me, it's important to not have ego at all in order to, work with these phenomena. The phenomena happens to the person who needs it most, I believe. So what happened the night before is something, that was for me, I suppose, and Peter, and then Saturday night, it was obviously for other people. So.
Wow. Going back to Thursday evening, I heard some stories that some stuff had happened. I think I heard one of your names Thursday evening with the ground shaking or something like that. Was it one of you guys involved in that?
Go ahead, Peter. That was at KOA, and it was other people in our group at the KOA campsite on Sunday night, right, Peter?
I don't recall the shaking at all. On the first KOA night, which was Thursday, it was nothing really.
Well, I think it was Sunday night was what maybe you're referring to, Grant, and that was it might have been Ray who had posted, because we had at our campsite that night. We had Ray, Vahid, Don, and Peter and I.
Okay.
And it was I believe maybe Ray and Don might have felt that there was some type of ground shaking, but Peter and I did not feel it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but the ground shaking is a phenomenon too that me and Cameron did experience years ago. So I believe what happened to them, it just happened to two of them.
Wow.
Interesting, the two thing again.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we were down at the bed and breakfast at the bottom of the mountain, and we didn't experience anything. So, of course, I really don't often experience. I get sort of messages, download type stuff, but I don't really have any visual stuff or anything like that happening. So I'm not surprised I didn't feel anything. Anything else happened to you guys, or that was so what, or maybe you can point out what most impressed you about the weekend in terms of people who might be watching this who are saying, should I go? Should I get into this? Should I check this out?
Well, it's the different modalities of contact. I was initially trained by Dr. Greer, and it seemed very kind of clinical, but yet meditation, but yet it was not as deep as the Rama folks. The Rama folks had more chanting, more sense of internal work. So it's good to get an overall picture of everything before for your own education. And the Robert Bingham technique we used the last night or the night before, I don't remember, but I told Cameron, just focus on these triangular stars, just focus, and something did happen. We had a few flash bulbs, and this one gigantic flash bulb showed up for us.
What technique do you use in San Diego with your group there? What kind of?
Since the guys are so used to Rama, and since I introduced Rama's techniques, they're still used to the Sioux City folks, Dr. Greer's protocol. So I incorporate that, minus his meditation. I like using the crop circles, and I like inducing a silent meditation with my bowl. I have a Tibetan bowl that kind of gets into that mood. And if somebody wants to guide a meditation, they're more than welcome to do that.
Wow. And you have success, you're saying. Is that every month?
We did have a daytime one. I had Mike Rusciano he's a famous UFO photographer. Him and his friend, there was Ted Mabbitt, a member of my team, and me, four of us, we did a daytime. And that's when the orbs, the silvery oval orb showed up for us. Just hovered in the sky using Robert Bingham's technique, and then raced across the sky. And we have a full report of that in our files. Mr. Rusciano took a picture of it, and the picture was like a spiked dandelion. It was the oddest thing, as if it knew about us.
Wow.
Yeah, that was fascinating. That was one of the best daytime sightings I ever had.
Wow. For people that might be interested in San Diego area, you actually do a sort of a screening of people, but how would people get your test to see whether they can be part of your group?
We're on Facebook. It's CE5 San Diego.
Okay.
It's just right there, and you just contact us via message, and we will forward you that questionnaire.
There you go. And you go every month? Is it the same weekend of the month?
Every month. It's every month on the new moon, regardless. Even if I'm not there, the group is actually organic. It sustains itself. It doesn't have a leader. It just goes on its own. That was my goal, and my goal has been set, I think. That's what all groups should be like that. They should go monthly on their own, or whatever they can.
Yeah. Wow. Fascinating. And Cameron, you're part of the group as well?
Yes. I've been part of the group since 2015 when I met Peter, right after the big Greer retreat that I had. That was July 2015. And
tell me a little bit about your near-death experience, because that, I think, ties in.
Well, I studied near-death experiences for 5 years because I felt that was the way to closely understand what death is. It's an illusion, it's a transition. But I had out-of-body experiences via meditation. And so the deepest meditation was my first one. And that one was 51 minutes long. I would always look at the clock before I'd start my meditation, and then look at my clock after it ended, because sometimes if you go somewhere, time is relevant, and it feels like you could be gone, 100 years. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a really, really long conversation if you want to get into that. What I did want to talk about my Rama experience
Okay.
is, it's so beautiful to see so many different techniques come together as one. We talk about oneness. You and I, of course, love Michael Talbot, the book, The Holographic Universe. It's
Right.
my favorite book that I've ever read. Now I'm reading The Field by Lynn McTaggart.
Okay.
I actually got into this originally by finding Nikola Tesla through my studies with quantum mechanics. And then that's when the light bulb went off, and I actually found Greer through the Orion's project via 0 point energy, my huge passion for getting off of fossil fuels and replacing with 0 point energy technology. And then, of course, gravity control and light healing and all of those other beautiful advanced technologies I wish we had. But and so, I first started studying that and found out about Greer. And then, so in a lot of the Greer studies, a lot of people will only focus on that type of technique. But at Rama, you have people who've been researching and studying with the Greer techniques. You have people who have been doing Rama. You have people who do Kundalini yoga. We were doing Tai Chi. We were doing Qigong. We were doing chanting. They talk about automatic writing, or some people, do channeling. There's so many different types of groups that were cohesive and brought in to this one Rama, weekend. And I think one of the most important things with the phenomena is to understand that it can be different for everyone, because I believe that it actually will come to you with the perspective that you personally have as an individual. We all have subjective individual perspectives on what our belief system is and so forth. So I don't think it's a one size fits all. And one of the big issues I think with the phenomena is there's these groups that sometimes are very secretive with one another. They don't want other people to use their title as if it's copyrighted or something, and that brings ego into it. And this is really about killing the ego. This is about the human collective consciousness of all. This is about oneness of all. Schrodinger said the number of minds in the universe is one. And that when we came together as Rama, I felt that we were tapping into the unified field at its foundation. My first out-of-body experience, I ended up in a place after I went through a wormhole of amazing colors that was counterclockwise spinning with all these little geometric shapes flashing all these different colors as it was spinning, and I was flying through it. And I came out into this grid that was all cobalt blue. Wow. And when I came out, I lost all memory of Cameron. I lost all memory of myself. My ego was shattered, gone. Yeah. And I became everything, and everything was me. Wow. And I felt as if I knew everything, that I had the answer to everything. And the only emotion that I felt was pure love and bliss, this beyond human comprehension. Wow. And like I said, it's very interesting. It was just blue, and it was this grid of these lines that looked like liquid lightning. It just looked like energy that was alive and shooting through. And so any shapes that I saw were just outlines made out of this grid. And so I go back to that moment of the unified field of that being the foundation of creation in a way, the holographic field, as if it's the two-dimensional hologram that's being has a light shined onto it, and maybe when people speak of the light, that's what they're talking about, this light that's shined onto the 2D hologram that's projecting our 3D reality, but it's all omnipresent. So I thought about that with Rama, that we were working with that foundation, and that everything we were doing affects total human consciousness, and maybe all consciousness itself, and it rippling out like a tidal wave flowing outward, changing that human consciousness and all collective consciousness. And So anyway, it feels like it's the most amazing work that can be done, and it obliterates the division. Division and fear create dogmas. You know,
Right.
I think that's the big mistake that humanity has done. There are stories, you know, that the ETs have been trying to pass this message. You know, they came to the ancient Egyptians, and they came again, and they came again, and you can see it in, you know, old art. You know, you look at art and you see that there's flying saucers in art. That goes back hundreds of years and so forth, and that they always try to relay this message of unconditional love and oneness, and that the humans always turned it into a fear-based dogma. And so I don't want that happening with this, if you want to call it the spiritual movement, or the this phenomena contact movement, probably a better way to say it, because this is oneness. It's for everyone. We need to bring down those walls between each other. So I think that it really, and Enrique, it seems like he had an epiphany after this weekend. It seems as though he felt this. He wrote something very beautiful about it. And that you know, Rama was, and I don't want to speak for him. Okay, this is just my interpretation. Yeah. Rama had very specific protocols, very tight protocols to not deviate from. Yeah. And you're not supposed to share. It wasn't even supposed to be shared among, he wasn't even supposed to be in Rama. They told him, from what I recall him saying, that they didn't want to let him in or something, and he kind of did it on his own. And then he brought it to America, which was not supposed to happen, and taught it in English. I think maybe he had this overwhelming feeling that this needed to be shared. And absolutely everyone in the entire world, you know, hopefully someday will be doing this type of work, you know. And so that's really what I got from Rama. I realized how important it is to do the work as a group. I did this work since 2010, mostly alone, except when I would go out with Peter and the others, you know, once a month, you know, for the new moon. And I realized how important it is as a group to do this work, because all of us have different experiences with the phenomena. We all have different knowledge, you know, and we were able to share that knowledge as a group. And these were just pieces of the puzzle that I didn't have, you know. Oh my goodness, you know, I didn't think of it that way, you know. I didn't know about that phenomena, etc. And it's helping put it all together, you know, to complete this puzzle. So it brings it to the point that we shouldn't divide ourselves by, oh, you do HEIS, you do CE5, you do Rama, you do this, and we have our separate groups. And it really would be best if we all just came together as one and shared all of our experiences, and just called it, you know, the contact phenomena or something like that. And it's just all as one. So
I'm glad you shared that experience, because that is sort of like the ultimate experience. And I think we have to sort of have empathy for people who may not understand that once you've had the experience that you have, where all is one, and you have that like samadhi experience, it changes everything. But if you haven't had that experience, you're still in your left brain, rational, analytical mind, where you think everything's random and all this kind of stuff. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think you are right that Rama has tapped into this. We're all sort of on the same sort of path. We just have these sort of different experiences. And if you share them together, then we can see that it's all the same thing.
Absolutely. I agree.
Where do you think we're going in the future, to sort of shut this conversation down a little bit? Where do you, for both you, what's your future plans? Where do you think we should proceed in terms of the next step?
Go ahead, Peter.
There's been an awakening process already. The tipping point has already probably have arrived, based on what I've seen with the Area 51 meme.
Yeah.
Show me them aliens. You know, I want to see them aliens. So at least they're talking about it now. What we're doing now as facilitators, we need to provide a place where people can actually are curious, they want to make contact, or they already have made contact, and they have a group that they can talk about it. A group that's absolutely free. Come do your thing every month with us. because I didn't have that when I left the guerrilla camp. I was lonely. I didn't know what to do. It was me, a squirrel, and a tree. That's how at least the squirrel showed up. And now I have a bunch of squirrels now. It has a life of its own. It's always going to grow and contract, but you just got to be patient. You got to keep the light on for whoever is out there. So they'll always will have a home so they can discuss and make contact.
Wow. Beautiful message. And Cameron, what are you planning to do? What's your next step in this whole thing?
My next step is to do a lot more of this work, to share as much as possible. I think it's extremely important for a lot of people to feel comfortable with sharing their experiences. I believe if the groups actually come together as one large group, that will have more experiencers come to the surface, as Peter, explained. The tipping point of the 100th monkey, and if anybody doesn't know the 100th monkey, do an ecosia.org search for that. I like ecosia, ECOSIA.org, because they plant trees instead of steal your information and all that, like the other G search engine. So, but yeah, so I believe that this, it started off as a joke, but the Area 51, Storm Area 51 movement, I believe, has created this massive awareness, of course. So we're changing consciousness, and that all actually started, prior to that, with the release of the Nimitz and other UFO phenomena that became all of a sudden very serious on CNN, Fox News, all the mainstream media. That no longer this is something to be laughed at. That this is very, very serious. That they showed, Nimitz. Look into that. The Tic Tacs, going all over. But the one point I really want to make that's so important about all of that disclosure by the mainstream news is that they have never been hostile. They don't have any factual information, and they didn't state so, that any of these vehicles, crafts, these Tic Tacs or what have you, sometimes they're flying saucers or whatever, that this phenomena has never been hostile, that the phenomena has never shot at anybody and so forth, as far as what they were showing. And so I think this is a huge awakening of consciousness. This is going to happen more and more rapidly. With that, then it went to the Storm Area 51 movement. People are Googling and, or ecosying and so forth, more and more about this phenomena. So I think it's so important for people like myself to make people feel open, comfortable. A lot of people are in the closet, and Peter, he loves, his saying, closets are for clothes. Say it. Say it.
I have enough of that.
Say it. No.
Let's hear you say it, Peter. Say it.
All right. Closets are for clothes. Get over there. Everybody's out. Everybody's getting married.
Yes.
The gays are out. The whoever's out. The pedophiles are out. Just get out of your closet. Say it as is. I'm sure there's other people in the same situation.
There you go.
Absolutely. So, all these people that have had some type of phenomena, they may think, oh my gosh, this was too weird. It's not like, something that the heist people have done, or maybe they don't know about Rama or, but it's just something that was strange, and so they can't, they're afraid of sharing it. They're afraid of coming out of the closet. And so I think it's very, very important to let people know that there is this cohesive group that is open to everything, all parts of the phenomena. And so hopefully more and more experiencers will come forward, and more of this needs to be shared out to the world, and more of these groups need to come together and share their experiences to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So there's one more thing as far as what I'm going to do. When I went to Indonesia, I'm a big time surfer, and I went to Indonesia and was on a boat for 11 days in October 2018. And I was meditating. I did over 17 hours of meditation on the boat trip, because after we'd be done surfing, they would talk about sports and whatnot. And I would go back to my cubby to meditate, because I don't talk about sports. I'm into deeper things. And I had a vision that I would have this lucid dream, and I had to pay attention to this lucid dream. It was going to give me somewhat of a solution, an answer to my, question of how can I actually get more awareness and increase consciousness, collectively.
Yeah.
And so I had a lucid dream. It always happens usually on a third, but the third night after I came back, and it was a movie. So it was a movie script. And so I woke up at like 2:20 or something in the morning and ran to get a pad and pen and wrote it down. And I started writing. I had to research how to write a movie script, which is much more difficult than writing a book, it seems. And I started writing a movie script. Who knows if it'll ever turn into a movie someday, but it's a comedy to try to catch, the sleepers, I would say,
Yeah.
the people who are really not awake. Oh, well, it's going to be funny, it's going to be, another one of these, White Castle, hilarious things.
Yeah.
But by the end, there's going to be all this consciousness awakening, disclosure in the movie. They're going to walk out of it completely different human being, and that's what I hope to accomplish. So anyway, I'm trying to do that work as well.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm doing a book called Contact Modalities, where I look at channeling and lucid dreaming and stuff and download. So I'll have to add that to my book, because that's a prime example. Did the entire script come to you at one time? Or was it like a flow where you didn't have to really think, you could just produce the whole thing?
It wasn't the entire script. It was just kind of the basics.
Okay, the outline,
of the outline of the story. So I wish the whole script came to me, because then I could have it done in a week. But so I'm having to fill in the gaps, so to speak. Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay. Hopefully, because you guys are pretty aware of what's going on and you have these insights. As I mentioned, on Saturday, I have an experiencer session that on the internet, where there's a lot of new people who come on that contact me, and they want to tell their story to somebody. So I hope you guys can come and share your wisdom Saturday at 11 Pacific. And it's a 2-hour session where it's a come and go thing. People will turn the cameras off and just watch, or they'll want to participate. But I hope you can come and share the information, because I want to sort of bring up the Shasta story with people, and hopefully a lot of the Shasta people will come and answer questions. A lot of people have got questions. They've thought of going, or they've heard me talk about it. So hopefully you can share that wisdom and join me then. And I have one last question for Peter. Maybe you can talk about your little, maybe a big podcast, your show that you do.
Yeah. Oh, what happened was I was actually looking for a camera guy.
Oh.
Somehow Ray showed up. I blocked her for a year. I didn't know who she was. So I met her at Rama.
Wow.
Of all places. So I says, well, join my group. And then she mentioned, hey, Pete, we should do a show. So instead of a camera guy, I got a huge production going on, because her brother does this for a living. He edits films for movies.
Wow.
So we started this show called the Pete and Ray Pathways Show. We teach people how to make contact. We teach people how to go camping. We teach people all the things that we kind of know to make contact. So it's like an educational program. It's like PBS, but not PBS. It's EPBS, Extraterrestrial Public Broadcast System. So it's free. We do it with our hearts. We're retired. We're just doing it for the community. That's what we do. And we interview.
You bring in a little bit of humor to it, right?
Yeah, so you gotta have some humor, because all this ET contact is very very holy, like very serious. Ooh. you gotta let loose sometimes and have some humor, and it's. I mean, you take it serious, but don't take it too serious.
Wonderful. So that's the Pete and Ray show, and if they just Google out, they'll find it, correct?
Yeah, the Pete, the letter N, RAE. Pathways show.
There you go. I appreciate it, gentlemen, for coming on, and I will do what I can to promote your material. I'm honored to have met you there, and maybe next time, Pete, you can talk a little bit about 2017. Did you see the aliens in 2017?
In 2017. Where was I? Was it Shasta, or was it somewhere else?
You were at Shasta. I was across the road having my experience.
That's right. That's why I met Paula for the first time. She was in shock. Yes.
Because you guys had a bunch of, you had these, was it, who was it that saw the beings walking around, the 25 beings or whatever? Because
Yeah. That's when that was like you got a contact for sure. Kimberly Marie and oh God, I'm drawing a blank. The one from Louisiana, I forget. And it was during the season Christo thing.
Yeah.
I didn't see the beings.
Yeah.
I just felt the crystal hit my hand, but they did see these tall beings in the tree line. I think Marcel maybe too also.
Marcel, I think, was the one that saw. Yeah, he mentioned the beings. I don't know who else saw them. Tell me about your crystal ceremony. What was your experience when you had your crystal?
My experience was the hardest part of contract work is staying warm and staying cool. So I'm in my sleeping bag, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out. I mean, all this woo-woo going on. Okay, whatever. So then somebody comes over to me and says, "Hey, you want to get your seasoned crystal?" Says, "Not really. I'm comfortable." After a minute or two, I realized, oh my God, Kimberly's here. I'll never hear the end of it if I don't do this. She's part of the big CE5 community in Michigan, and they all talk, So I get out, okay, let's do it. So then, okay, there's a group of us, and then here comes Enrique. He's real busy. So here I am. I'm doing the om in my head, and to speed things up, I put the Merkaba. I spin it around my head.
Okay,
so we gotta get this done, man, because he's busy. So I put my hand out, thinking, okay, whatever. All this woo-woo. And I felt a little weight, just a little weight on that hand. And there was something there. And then afterwards, I kind of realized my ESP just picked up a little bit. The buses I know how to predict a little better and all that. But hey, what the heck? I got rid of the car.
Yeah.
But the ESP does, to me, it has picked up a little bit. And in general, it's something. I'll still work with it. But I'm still learning.
Yeah. I think that's one thing we should warn people. People think it's all sort of like a circus and all sorts of stuff happening. They got to realize that you got to dress, double up everything you've got. Right. It's like 100 above. I think we were 100 above when we were at the falls there on Saturday. And it's like you almost freeze to death at night. Most people aren't aware how cold it gets.
At 7,000 feet, it does get colder.
Yeah.
Especially when you're sitting still during the meditation process. Or even if you're oming, it's still get a little cold.
Yeah. I live in the coldest major city in the world, and I was just shocked at how cold it gets in the evening. And the other thing people should maybe be aware of, what was those exercises they tried to kill us with on Saturday morning? What was that? I was blown away. I couldn't believe it.
I know. It was Qigong.
Qigong, yeah, because I'm not used to doing it. It's like I walk like 10 miles a day, but when you got to bend and do this and that, and I'm going, oh my goodness, not another exercise. He called it energy. I thought, no, in Canada we call this pain, man. It was like,
well, I always warn the newbies, this is not the wine and cheese club.
Yeah. People should be aware of that. That is true. People should be aware. It's there are some I don't know what you'd call them. It pushes you physically to be there. I said with this event that happened at 4 o'clock in the morning, is what they need is a bell where, if something happens in the middle of the night, you go ring the bell and get everybody up. Mm-hmm. And people don't really sleep that much. That's the other thing people don't realize. It's like these one event started at midnight and was supposed to go till 3 o'clock in the morning. And then, 9 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, we're starting again. That people think it's going to be, they don't realize it can be a little bit tough being in one of these things, but it does raise you to a higher level. It sort of cuts the ego down, cuts the physical down. It sort of wears you down, and it opens you up to these experiences.
Right. It reminds me of like being a monk.
Yeah,
You wake up at 3 in the morning, you don't have much sleep, little boot camp going on.
Yeah, and people are fasting.
We're not there to socialize. We're there to work.
Yeah, it was quite something. Even the fasting thing, I did that. I've done a minor fasting, but I did sort of a major fast, and that was like another wake up call where it as you said, it's like being a monk. It's not an easy process being up there.
Right, and everybody has a version of fasting. You could just eat less, or have a vegetarian thing, and you're still a little hungry.
Yeah.
But at least it helps you to meditate more on a clean system.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, and hopefully we see you Saturday. And if anything happens, let me know, and we'll do another broadcast, and I'll get it out to my people, and hopefully the light will come on for somebody, and we will have moved the ball a little bit down the field.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I'll see you
Appreciate it,
Saturday.
Brian.
Beautiful.
Looking forward to it.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day. Bye.